and our architects will discuss the new plan and where we are and sort of how we got here and where we're going. And then from there, we will have a little turn on the historical. Alexander's here to do that. And we will sort of wrap up where we'll go next in our next steps. So that's it. We'll jump in really quickly. Linda, would you like to say a few words before we get going? Thank you. So, this is Linda Haleva, our principal here at Roosevelt.
Thank you, everyone. I thought you were going to save me for last, but I'm ready to go. So, thanks. I'm bundled up because I wasn't sure what we were headed into this evening for the weather, but I'm so happy you're here tonight. Thank you for coming. Your interest and your time here with us this evening is so important, and we really value your feedback, your suggestions. Anything you have to share with us is very much valued and you're heard. As Carrie was talking about, we have gone through this journey for, I believe, about 4 years now, and we've gone through many iterations of a new building. And we have had wonderful feedback from our teaching staff. We've had wonderful feedback from families in the community as well, and we've been able to just make the new presentation even better. It's just grown so much since the very beginning. I have to tell you, I really support what our district is doing in creating a new plan for us and a new building. It helps us really move into the future with our students, and it makes it a really, environment's everything when you're talking about teaching and learning. So we really want to give our students the best, and I think that's what we have to offer here tonight, and we hope that you support our efforts in that journey. So thank you so much.
Okay, I'll bring up our architects. We have two firms that have been working on this. DSK that sort of began our work, and then we sort of developed our assessment, got through this, and we sort of really, as we wanted to take another view and sort of really take a deeper sort of idea, we brought in MRY to assist and sort of help get us to this place. So, and then our architects are over here. Jeff and Abby and Waya, but then James is going to be doing our presentation today. So James O'Connor. And all.
Delighted to be here, and just a little bit about us. You often wonder, who the hell are they? And just an idea, if you've ever gone to Santa Monica Library, the public library on 7th and Santa Monica, that's one of our projects. We've always focused on educational buildings, and we finished opened the Discovery Building at Santa Monica High School last year, and we have 2 more under construction. But I think today things are changing about buildings and the way we use them. We want a lot more out of the buildings now than we ever got before. Meaning they have to be useful. And I love beauty and I love looking at our architecture, but it has to be useful in what we need. Because education is so demanding today, we want those buildings to give us a lot more. So on that note, a little bit about the existing the buildings here, and built in the 30s and 40s, and they're very modest buildings. They had a little bit of detail, and because they were built very simply. One of the great things I think about the buildings is this relationship with the indoor-outdoor, this teaching that, and it's very Californian, which is wonderful, and even now after COVID, hopefully, it even makes more sense to have this indoor-outdoor relationship. So that's a real inspiration, I think, for these buildings. It does have its challenges as an entry, and as you walk through, where are you going? How can I see the space? Where's the light? And in these passages. Looking at the campus, and for the size of it, for the population here, it's actually quite a small campus. It's a little under 6 acres, which is about, I think, about 100 students per acre. I think there's about 600 students here. So it's actually quite a small campus, but it's underused. And the first thing we wanted to show was there's areas on this site that could really expand. Where are the assets? And particularly on 9th Street in Montana. Montana is a street that we can really capture. Right there, they're just hedges and landscape. but we really could capture that, and all along 9th Street, and here opening the site to the corner of Montana and Lincoln. That's really a fantastic asset. But we wanted to look at the buildings first. Almost, what do we have and what do we need? The existing buildings are 23 by 42, almost 900 square feet. That's the existing classroom building on 9th Street. But if you overlay that, what the educational specifications are today for contemporary education, it's not only that, but it's doubled in size. And the green area outside of that is the outdoor space. So you can just see the existing with the outdoor space. We need more than double that. And we would need it on 2 floors. So it's not a matter of, can we take these buildings and just turn them into classrooms? We're dealing with something completely different now. There's certain kinds of uses we can use for these buildings, but it's not classroom buildings. It's not educating our children. And then on the kindergarten, when we look at the kindergarten, the existing buildings too are way undersized in terms of what we need. I know we also want to build the TKs as well, the transitional kindergarten, but it's way undersized in terms of what we want to do. When you look at the history of the campus, the original buildings, the South Quad Court was the earlier one in the 1935, and the later one in the 1940s. Certain kinds of buildings we certainly can put uses in, like administration and other kinds of spaces that are not strictly educational buildings, instructional buildings. What we propose is to bring back and restore the South Court, really bring that back to the way it was originally, really restore that and kind of celebrate that as the kind of older historical part of the campus. When you look at the 1936, this was the original, what it looked like when it was built as a piece on its own. And what we'd like to do is, the idea, the vision there is keep that intact and really restore that as a kind of center in the plan itself. Having a major entry here on Montana. Montana and Lincoln is the place to do it. The opposite side, where the kindergarten, that's a quieter area, and that's not where you should come in. This is where you come in commercially. It makes a lot more sense to come in there and build on the existing. Originally from that corner in the 50s, you could see the South Court, and there was a lovely kind of landscape that built up to that. And today, because sometimes we romanticize about, what it was and what we have. So we're showing you a series of images, the past, the present, and what the future could be. But it's important to know where we are. That's the view today. And in a way it turns its back on the community. I mean, it's more defensive. What we propose to do is make that much more engaging, a place for parents and children and entry and celebrate part of the community and landscape. And of course, the school, in the climate we're in today in terms of security, we want to give the appearance of open and everything, but we will have, total, security, safety and security is number one. But it's not meant to look like prison. It's meant to look like it's engaging and it's part of this community and it's welcoming. We propose to put the library on Montana, and the library it's a great kind of building because it has that connection with knowledge and the community, and also the presence on the campus. And any building that you pull out to the street needs to have some kind of engaging quality. The auditorium is an interesting building, but it's internal. Like this building, it's about the stage, what's happening on the stage. And certainly you could open the back wall and have events, but its daily life isn't open to the community. This is what the corner is looking like today at that diagonal. And what we'd like to do is open it up, and you can see in the distance the south court coming out the corner and really bring that part of the picture. In the 40s, it looked like this from Lincoln, where it had a strong presence. Today, it's blocked off, and we want to sort of unveil that, just to bring that idea out, and have this community garden that's engaged with the area all around here, and different types of landscapes, native landscape as well as lawn, and more sustainable. And what we call unlocking the site. The auditorium, in a way, locks the site, that whole corner. That corner is so important to open up the site and perceive the South Court as a way of coming through, is the way we're sort of thinking. This was the view in 35 of that whole setting and of the corner itself. It was very charming, and we'd like to bring it back to this initial way. But today it's like this. The roof is now a storage area for mechanical and God knows what. But the gem is there. It can be brought back, and this could be the kind of administration and center area. And you can just see here how it can be pulled out here and release. So let's go through each part of it. This is zooming in. So what I'd like to do is kind of zoom in on the quad itself and show you where it was in 36. And it had larger windows, and we'd like to restore that, and canopies, and indoor-outdoor patios. Today, it's pulled back from that. It has some challenging areas for accessibility and landscape, and it's kind of retreated. In a way, it's pulled back from itself. We'd like to really use that space. It's a major asset. It's one of the great things of this indoor-outdoor patios, teaching spaces, and here, shade with trees. Community spaces are going to be very important, how we engage in the campus itself. The kindergarten, we propose that it be developed on the same location that it is. It's on the east side, it has morning sunlight, those kids are there much earlier, but we want to give that a much bigger presence in terms of its outdoor space and the new requirements for size of the kindergarten spaces and the transitional kindergarten spaces. It will also have indoor-outdoor teaching areas surrounding there. Shade is going to be very important. I mean, the climate is changing, we need shade. If the outside space is to be valuable, we need to be able to be in it. And it's wonderful here to have some shade, but put shade where it's needed in terms of the orientation. So that's really important. On the left-hand side is an elementary school we did a number of years ago, but the arcades have light coming through so that kids want to be in those kinds of spaces. And then we proposed, right now, there isn't a kind of center in terms of an organizing place like where I'd meet. The sports area kind of diffuses into the academic area, and sometimes you don't know whether it's game area or it's academic area. So in the center quad, we'd like to have a major area here. There was an existing electrical area. I think it was Jeff said, we have to keep. So we found a great place for it underneath an amphitheater. Outdoor learning throughout, different kinds of places for learning. And then makerspace. And these are so terrific kind of spaces to have students make various things and something that is indoor and outdoor, very visible, and state-of-the-art facilities that allow lots of flexibility, the use of tools and safety within those kind of spaces. The cafeteria, we propose to put the cafeteria on the opposite side, remove it from its existing place, and put it on the opposite side, overlooking the sports area. on 9th Street and have loading off there. A single-story building that captures the views. Also, I think it's more equitable. Students from all over going to a place that's very open and engaging. The space here we're looking at is, and I don't know if anybody's been to the new dining area that we did at the Discovery Building, but one of the nicest things is these doors that open up. The wall opens up, and students, I saw Dr. Shelton there a few times having to tell the students to go home. You know, they're just spending more, you know, the evenings after 3:30, they were still there. And they were, you know, it was nicer than wherever they were coming from. They wanted to stay there. And part of this is this ease of indoor-outdoor spaces. There's also an interest in the culinary program, and we proposed, and it can be in a different area, but at the moment we're looking at the community garden beside the dining. There was some interest in being closer to the kindergarten, but that's totally flexible. But at the moment we have it next to the dining. The auditorium, we have built that in the future stage where the existing cafeteria is, but pushed back so it would have lots of outdoor spaces. So the wall just could open up and you could have performances on special venues all inside the campus. It's close to Lincoln, so for parents, easy access and security, but it's within the campus and opens up. Arts facilities within that. And why are we doing this now? Well, many of the future for our kids, many of those jobs in the future don't even exist today. So we need to build facilities that really teach kids, really flexible, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things. So flexible programs. Classrooms in the past were often corridors and rows of seats. That's all gone now. We are teaching in completely different ways, and we need our buildings to do more for us. We need flexible walls, flexible spaces, and the first day that the school opens shouldn't be the best day. It's just the beginning. This is Lincoln, Montana at the entry here, and you can see as it moves through. Now a little bit about the plan itself, and you could actually call it, the word master plan is going, by the way. It's really campus plan today, but so a little bit about the plan. It's organized so the kindergarten is on Montana and 9th Street. First and second grade are on the ground. First and second grade towards 9th Street, and then we have kept a bit of the existing building here on Lincoln, teaming, music, auditorium, and in the center we have the maker space in that peanut-shaped building, so it can be kind of looser. And then sports. One of the things that we try to do at the very beginning is to give you more parking. Parking is always a challenge. So there's two approaches we have to parking. One is a kind of easy thing of relocating the parking so it's on Alta Avenue here, and takes the whole end here and stripes it as parking. That's an easy lift. That gets us an extra 22 cars. And that's something that can easily be done. On the upper floor we have 3rd and 4th grade and 5th grade with teaming in between, and they're all connected. Those white areas are kind of bridges. And then we have another idea about the parking. In the past, many people have designed what we call single-purpose buildings, meaning they just do one thing. But what if your landscape or your sports or various buildings could do many things? What if our parking was raised up a little bit? Because the land here is actually up quite a bit. There's like a 6 foot, and there's about 4 to 6 feet drop across the land. We raised it up slightly, and we put parking underneath.
Wow.
And that parking could be a very flexible space, so it would create this new kind of real estate. That space, when not used for parking, or in the future when you don't need parking, that could be other educational spaces. So we lift it up, the sports can be lifted up, and this would give us, what do we have, we have 165 spaces. That would be an additional 120. So just a different way of thinking about the space, because with a tight site, we want to find more real estate and use the area in a better way. So this is a different way about using that property, and not only does it give you more room and more parking, it potentially could give you more actual space. I mean, the full length of this, which is like 350 feet long. So, and then as we look across here, a little bit about where people are coming in. So the public entrance would be on Montana. And that's right now, the public entrance is that ramp that sort of slips between the buildings. The kindergarten entry would be on 9th Street, and the upper grade entrance would be on Lincoln. So both entrances. We have the play area entrance, which would maintain in that general location here on 9th Street, and then the parking entrance to the west end. The drop-off zones would be on 9th and Lincoln, and then on the weekends, the sports area will be maintained, and actually it's a much bigger area, but it's more now, more separate. The idea that, as from a young child to a global citizen. So this is something that we're just starting in terms of not only photovoltaic panels, but sustainability and environmental sustainability can be also educational tools. It's not all technology and some hidden idea about generating energy. It can be also a learning tool. So how are we going to build this? And of course it's going to be done in phases. So the first phase will be to demo the kindergarten in its present location. We will be, now I'm sure the very next question is, where are you going? We're going to be on the campus. We're studying the location of that. That's all part of the process, and we'll work closely with you. But it's the very first thing to be done is along Montana. So phase one will be the kindergarten, the transitional kindergarten, and the library, and the entry here is the very first thing to be done, phase one. Second will be to demo the sports fields in that area. And the two scenarios I shared with you, no decision is made on either one of those. They have to be costed and evaluated, but we're very open on that. And then to build the sports field as part of that second phase. Third phase would be demo the classrooms on 9th Street, and then build the new classrooms and the cafeteria. We can't demolish the existing cafeteria until we build a new cafeteria. Next phase is to demo the cafeteria and the portables and some of the existing buildings, and then build the new auditorium, teaming and maker space. Demo, the last thing to be demoed is the auditorium, and then complete the entry as part of that. So that's in a short kind of vision. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but my kids went to Roosevelt. Thank you.
Okay. We need you, but that means we need the other presentation. So I need to get that up. Hang on just a second. There we go. Alexander, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexandra Madison, and I'm with Historic Resources Group. We completed an evaluation of Roosevelt Elementary, and so I'm going to walk through a little bit of the school's history so that we can kind of couch the future within the past. So today I will be going over the development history as well as the eligibility and period of significance. Also our findings. We did determine a historic district exists at the campus, and as well then talking about the architecture. So to start, we have a selected chronology. The first Roosevelt School was actually located at a different site and opened in 1907. However, during the Long Beach earthquake, it severely damaged the school and it was demolished. Marsh, Smith, and Power were then hired as master architects to design the current school at our current location in 1934. With funding from the WPA, the school was expanded in 1940 by architect Estep. And then buildings C, D, and H were all extended or built, so those are the auditorium and the cafeteria, later on in 1951. Then we have later building additions in 1968 and 2000. So we identified several periods that were significant within the history of Roosevelt Elementary. One of the first ones was the Long Beach earthquake of 1933. This was a very important event specifically for Santa Monica as well as Southern California in general, Los Angeles area. It was a very intense earthquake that damaged a ton of masonry buildings across the city. And so a lot of schools previously were built with these large block campuses that were severely damaged. And so there was a period of a couple of years where schools were mostly being taught out of tents, while many school districts were scrambling to try and build more earthquake-friendly and appropriate for Southern California schools. California then passed the Field Act, which had certain requirements for building these new schools. The Santa Monica Plan was devised by Marsh, Smith, and Powell. And this was a new way of designing schools. Instead of having 2- or 3-story large brick buildings, they were much more open to the campus, low 1-story campuses, typically with wood construction, and a very heavy emphasis on indoor-outdoor living and school teaching. So they reflect the intimate, modern design that we see during this period, and was lauded as a model for schools across the country. This actually became known as the Santa Monica Plan, and it was published in architecture journals across the United States. It really became quite popular, and Roosevelt was the very first school to be designed in this campus. We then have a period of PWA development. During the Great Depression, Santa Monica received $1.5 million. They put this money to very good use and expanded a number of campuses, including Roosevelt. So this is when Joe M. Estep was hired later on, and it included the expansion both from 1940 to 1950. So because of these major events and significant aspects of the school campus history, we determined that the historic district on Roosevelt was eligible under 2 different criteria at both the national, state, and local level. So the first criteria is A11 with a period of significance from 1935. So this is mostly regarding major events and development histories. So in regards to the post-Long Beach earthquake development of the school, as well as the PWA development. So these were 2 very significant aspects of Roosevelt's construction history and very unique. We also identified a second criteria, C3, 4, and 5 for the national, state, and local criteria, which is associated with architecture. And this is for the PWA modern style buildings and their association with master architects. So we identified a number of buildings as well as site features and additional features as contributing to the historic district at Roosevelt. And this is an outline of the historic district as we determined. The blue line encompasses all of the areas. We have the buildings highlighted as well as some of those other additional features, which include the WPA bronze plaque, some of the open spaces, specifically the quads, because they reflect that indoor-outdoor learning. We have as well the sign there. So these are some photographs of those contributing features, the buildings, as well as the site features. You can see the WPA bronze plaque in the corner there. And then there is the panel down the corner, as well as some of the other remnants of significant features of the campus. Thank you.
So before we go to questions, so the interesting thing about a historic district is that it's a little bit of a new idea for K-12 schools. It was originally sort of devised an idea for like university campuses or main streets, blocks of, our particular housing developments. So it's interesting, we're starting to see that sort of being focused on schools. But one of the things that's sort of important is we want to maintain the historic district, but it's not essential to retain all of the contributors. So it's the question of what you can take away, what you can alter, what's already been altered to sort of still maintain the historic district. So we felt like our design sort of found a really great balance between the needs. We looked at what happens if you keep everything, and we didn't really meet any of our educational needs, or we blew away all of our recreational spaces, or we weren't going to get there. So we really found that giving back and forth, and I think Caitlin just walked out. I know Caitlin isn't here, but we worked extensively with the Santa Monica Conservancy to find a place, a balance, sort of to both meet the needs of the historic along with the educational. And that sort of is where we get to. We can now take questions or comments. Yes, ma'am.
So the phases you guys outlined, how long does each phase take, and what do you do with kids when they're displaced during the phase if they're being demolished?
Sure. So I would say that this is like a 15-year plan. Let me go back. And a little bit of it has a lot to do with funding. So our intent would be to do the first phase, which is the demo of the kindergarten and the 2 modular classrooms, and get the library and phase 1 built. We also think that we would get the field built, parking and field done. This would all be in the next 5 to 6 years. And this is, so we do anticipate going out for another general obligation bond in 24 to fund this. So it would be funding, and that would cover that first phase. So about 5 to 6 years. Then the next section, which would be the new cafeteria and new classroom building, would probably be in the next 5 to 6 years, because we'd go in the next sort of funding cycle. And then the last bit, which would be get the new auditorium, clear that out and complete it, would be in the next 5 years. It'd be lovely to do it all. At the same time, we have to have an active campus. So yeah, part of the question is, what we like to do is often build something before we tear something down, but the real push from our teachers and a lot of the folks here at the school was to keep the kindergarten TK in that area, in the front area. So we will have to relocate them during the time of construction, probably about 2 years. We're already looking at what we might do in that time. We have a lot of ideas, we have not worked this out, is we might move them maybe into this area, not the perfect place for them, but it is a place that we swap out these aged portables with some that have restrooms. Because with TK, particularly, having a restroom in places, they might be a little bigger, and how we do that and how we swing that, that's very much part of our process.
part of our question. The other thing you might not have noticed is this little number up here, and that is the question of how many classrooms we're losing at a time. So like we lose 5 here, but we know that because we have a little lower enrollment, we have enough room to sort of play with 5. Then it goes back to we're up 4, then we go down to 0, and so we're at 0 still, but then we're down 6. We believe we have enough room that we can cover that in our expected enrollment, and then we're up 10, which allows us to take this out, and then we have +1, and then we end with a +5, and then a +1. So we have about the same number of classrooms, but the biggest difference is we go from undersized classrooms. Our classrooms are for the most part between 750 and 850 square feet, and the standard for the state is 960 for 1st through 5th grade. Actually, kindergartens and TKs are supposed to be 1350. And so what we do is we're pushing them up towards not only the CDE standards, but also what our ed specs tell us, which we develop with our educators to say, what type of facilities do we need to teach kids now? And so that's the goal. Yes?
2 questions. What do we have funding for right now? And then the second thing is, if this is 15 years down the future, in 15 years, class size regulations or standards might be different. So how are you matching what, like, Department of Education or whatever is saying is going to happen in 2040 and 15 years later?
Right. So for this campus, there is not any funding available for any of this, so it will all be in the next bond. We would be going to the board on April 20th. If we're all in agreement that this is a way to move forward, we'll be requesting that we go ahead and get funding to begin the design of this, so that when the bond passes, either in March or November, whenever we go out for it, that we're ready to jump on construction right away. We don't have to wait for another 2 years for a design to occur, because we want to get ahead of it. So that's where we're heading for that. This plan has built into it a lot of variation. In some ways, both for the California Environmental Quality Act, our CEQA needs, we have to say, here's our plan, this is the way we're going. But also it's good to sort of say, here's where we think we're going to go. I can probably tell you 20 years from now, we will not have built this exact plan. We will adjust, we will adapt, we will listen to our teachers and our educators, we will listen to how education is changing. Education is changing so rapidly that we do know that, we are going to have to make adjustments. And where we might say, hey, the makerspace is the best good idea today, 10 years from now, it might be something else entirely, and maybe instead of the soccer field, we'll be putting in the Quidditch court, Yes, Jeff.
And one thing that too, and not to be detailed, but we build buildings a little differently. Almost all the buildings within Santa Monica and across, the country and mostly in California were built with that Santa Monica plan to have what's called shear walls. So that's a lot of the questions we face. Just make 3 classrooms 2. But you can't, because those 2 walls are structural, and by the time you take them out and do all modifications, you're basically building a new building. When we start designing the structure of these buildings, those classroom walls in between can be removed. So, for example, if the future said, hey, we don't need 960, we need 1200, we need 1400, those walls are easier to remove and adapt, much easier than what we're trying to do now with these buildings.
Because we're under, the schools are under the state, and we don't go through Santa Monica planning for this, we go through the state architect. These buildings actually are the safest in the whole city. The new classrooms are being built in new school residential regulations. So as Jeff was saying, we can have a completely different way of doing, dividing it up and making it more flexible. In the past, things were just built and you had to work around it. But today, it has to be looser, and you can add different things in.
And in some ways, just like the Santa Monica plan was a progressive idea for the 1930s, and we led in many ways. I mean, this finger-building Roosevelt plan has been repeated hundreds of times around the country. In the same way, what we're doing with flexibility of design, with the Discovery Building at Samuel High, which is the first K-12 building built on an open building design that's built to adapt and change as education changes over 100 years. We're taking that idea to all of the buildings that we build, so that we know that as education changes, these buildings are built to adapt and change.
As education changes, and then also as population changes?
As population changes, yeah, we know where we're sort of going for now with population. We are watching very, very closely both the land use plan from the city, but also the developers, I forget what the word is, their option that they sort of pushed in, because there's a potential of 4,400 spaces getting built rather quickly here in town, and all of them are in the Roosevelt and McKinley area. So we're watching how that's going to happen, and we're going to have to take a real look at how we use all of our facilities to support educational growth.
Are you allowed to go 3 stories in this zoning if you needed to?
For zoning, we could. Where the challenge is with the Division of State Architects, effectively, you cannot put you can only put 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade above the ground, above the 1st story. So TKK's first, you cannot put above the 1st story. 2nd, you can, but there's a whole lot of extra rules and things. It's like you have to provide separate stairs, and they have to be different, and it's like, it doesn't make any sense to put 2nd graders up above the 1st story. So if we're following, so when we we always start a lot of our projects in the middle of the summer, because that allows us to do the dirtiest, nastiest, noisiest work. But in our 10-week summer, we have to cram a whole lot of work to get in here. So we have a project that's going up at Rogers, and we're basically saying the day school is out, actually the day before school is out this year, everything's got to be out of that area so we can get in and demo to get done what we need to do to get back open in 10 weeks. So I would imagine that when we would go into demo, which way I need to go, one way back there. Anyway, when we need to demo the existing kindergarten area and portables, that will probably happen in a summer. I think probably summer of 25, but that would happen like the day we get to start, so we can knock out as much stuff and get it abated and gone before the kids come back. And then what's good in the construction and that's a little bit easier is, our construction on the edges will always be easier than our construction in the middle. So I feel like this construction is going to be very achievable. This one will be very achievable. That part will be very achievable. When we finally come in and do this section, that's beautiful. Yeah, by then it will be 10 years from now, and we'll have figured out how to fly the building in, or just, we'll set it up with lasers somehow, and we won't have, I don't know, yes.
So if the plan is to move the TK and K kids into the portables, where's the aftercare program that's currently using the portables going to be?
We have a lot of work to do on the swing space and we are, because the enrollment is down at the moment from your maximum of 800, you're down to like 595 or 600 right now. We have a little more space than we've had, so we can move some things around a little bit, and so we feel like we can achieve that with the 5 classrooms going away that we would demo while we build new. We feel like we can move folks around to achieve that. But Linda and we've been talking really deeply. We have a lot more. That's part of the first part of the design discussion, is really to figure out what we actually can achieve.
And then my next question is, as beautiful as that opening entrance looks, you mentioned that security was a priority, but that looks wide open to all of the courtyards and then eventually the classrooms and everything. Is there going to be an actual enclosed gate, or
Yes.
is it open?
Absolutely, yeah.
So there is a fence line that goes right through here, and so that gives us a really secure perimeter. We also use the buildings in a better way to create the secure perimeter around the campus. We're going to be putting a place right here that someone can go in, and that's where you'll check in. So there'll be an easier way to check in, get there. Once you're checked in, then you can be released onto the campus. We do know that, we hate to say it, we think a lot about these things, but, with active shooters, 95+% of the active shooting that happens on elementary school campuses are as somebody from outside coming in. So we know that having a strong perimeter, good gates, good fences, good control of how people come in is the best thing for safety. The other thing that we also look at, you might see a lot of glass. We're very, very careful, though, asking questions. So if we need to go to a shelter in place, so there's something happening in the community, we know we have a good perimeter. If there is actually an active shooter on campus, in those classrooms, in those spaces, we've built places for people to hide.
And we make that so that you can lock doors easily, you can close it down and then hide in those spaces. And that's very much part of our design. But we don't want to give up what we know is useful for education, which is visibility, light, daylight, the ability to see off in the distance. All of those things really help education. We don't want to give those things up, that indoor-outdoor relationship, for the safety. We want to make sure we find the right balance between the two.
And the best kind of fence you can have is a building. So it doesn't look defensive, but it's secure. On 9th Street right now, it's really nice, you have all those open spaces, but they're facing the wrong direction. We want to have that flip it to the inside and make it more protected.
Yes.
Since we're talking a little bit about safety and glass walls, I'm Kathy Hamlin, and I've worked here at Roosevelt, worked here 17 years. And the teachers, I've been on a committee that has been looking at the new plans, and we're really delighted with these new plans and really feel like they're going in the right direction and they're very beautiful. We love the response, the historical significance of keeping the buildings and all of that. But as we look through the plans, teachers are concerned about entire glass walls. And so we took a survey, and all of the teachers said they do not want an entire glass wall. Of course, we want windows, we love our Santa Monica breezes, but teachers are very concerned about safety. And if you're not a teacher, you can't imagine the burden that is placed upon teachers as they think about trying to keep their students alive. And so we feel that it's cruel to ask teachers to keep their students alive and then give them a wall made of glass. So every teacher in the survey, except one, said they do not want an entire glass wall. And the one teacher who said she might want an entire glass wall was if it was bulletproof. But safety is not the only concern. Lighting is a huge concern for teachers because we love our smart boards. They are the most amazing things. You turn them on, kids look at them, and you immediately have their attention, and there's just so many amazing things we do with our smart boards. But I have two jobs in my class. One's called doors, one's called lights. And all day long I'm saying doors, lights, because we turn off the lights and we close the doors so that we can see our smart board with good clarity. So that is the second biggest concern that teachers have, is about lighting to see their smart boards. But that's not the only concern. They're also concerned about cabinet space, bulletin board space, space for student work displays. And their other concerns are earthquakes, the distractions, that kids get distracted when things are going by the room. Also, who will clean the glass walls? So, of course we do want windows. We love that Santa Monica breeze. But the teachers have a resounding no to an entire wall of glass. And we would, in the future, we know that things are changing. This is not the definitive. We understand that it's moving, it's working, and we're excited about this plan. But we do want to hear more about the benefits of an entire wall of glass.
So the next step is, as soon as the board says go with design, and having the campus plan we feel good about allows us to go, then we start meetings and discussions. And what I want to say to you and the other teachers is, when we get an opportunity to come and speak to you, show up. Come and give your input, because it's only whenever the designers are with you that we can hear those things. And what I sometimes just want to say, it's just so important, because sometimes what happens is we say, hey, this is happening, and for a teacher they think, yeah, but tomorrow I have a lesson plan, and but this, but if we don't get it in the early part of the design, we're going to keep going in our direction. We have to get your feedback now.
Right, that's why I'm giving you this feedback now.
Okay, and so
And I would say in the future too, if you really want to, not all teachers live here in Santa Monica, so they drive far away, so coming back at 5:30 is rough.
Right.
So I would say, let's have these meetings before school, during school, right after school, and more teachers will attend.
Okay, and we'll work with your principal and get those set up. Yes. Somebody had a hand up over here. Did I miss something?
Yeah, I had
And I'll come back over here.
I had a question about the glass walls, which I'm a parent, and I really appreciate hearing the teachers' point of views. I feel like that's a population that has the biggest viewpoint and the voice, and so I think that's fantastic. I wanted to hear from you what you feel, or the architects, what are the biggest drawbacks and biggest risks about having this plan? We've talked about how wonderful it is, but like, can you admire the problems as well? Like, what would be the biggest drawbacks and risks?
Okay. Our big challenge is we have to do it in phases, and it's going to take time. A second big, because where we like to put students and teachers in the best facilities right away, it's going to take time to get there. Even when we're done, I've got to say, the fifth grade classrooms on the second floor of the existing building are still going to be useful. The only way we'd ever get there is level the whole thing and rebuild the whole thing, and we can't do that. We can't afford to do it, we can't do it in time because we have the school happening. So this really feels like it balances a lot of those things, and I think that's part of what we did working with the Santa Monica Conservancy and everyone else. And we thought, let's put the TK back here because when we build the kindergarten TK before we tear down the existing ones. That was our original plan. This one has that problem that we're building in the same location. So those, so we have a lot of phase things. That's where I really want to say this is a balanced plan, because a lot of things that might have been good ideas got moved aside. A lot of things that were problems got pushed around. This one sort of hopefully finds the right balance.
And let me mention, just because it's the master plan thing, people always get confused. So what is the master plan? The master plan is setting where the buildings would go and the open space and how you approach it, parking, all of those things. It's not designing the buildings. It's arranging the tables around the chair, but not deciding what's going to go on the table yet. And that's normally what you want to do. The best thing about a master plan is to have a big vision that's flexible, that other things can happen. So a lot of these concerns, because I think we have to show something, right? It can't just be a series of blocks. Otherwise it doesn't look inspiring. So there's glass and there's all kinds of things there. But it's the bones that are important. It's the bigger vision about opening space and about moving through it. And all of these things about your needs of the classroom and glass and all that, those are we sit down with you and we hear all those concerns and it gets evolved. That's a normal way. So I just want to be careful that it doesn't look like it's already cooked and you're going to have to eat this.
Oh, sorry. Here, then here, just because you know.
Yeah, I don't know, synthetic grass, is that common, like, now? I know it's a water conservation thing, but is it like a safety thing? Again, it's not that earth that the kids want to be in contact with, it's
Yeah.
actually organically better.
This is another one of those that's a huge balance question. If we had a lot of space and we had more water, I would say grass completely for the elementaries. Our challenge here is that we don't have a lot of field space. And for a good grass field, you don't play it more than 4 hours a day. And then you need to take for 9 months out of the year. So you're supposed to rest it for 3 months out of the year and not play it more than 4 months. As you know, we play the heck out of the fields. So what happens is, as you walk onto our fields, they're not good grass, beautiful grass fields. They are this mixture often of mud and hard as rock dirt, and no matter how well we care for them. So then when you balance the fields that we can maintain given these conditions and a synthetic turf field for play, then it starts to balance out. And when you look at injuries, grass fields, especially the grass fields we talk about, have a certain set and type of injuries. The synthetic turf fields have a different set of type of injuries. The environmental impacts, it's like all of them, everything sort of balances out, but where it doesn't balance out is the quality of that grass field and whether or not we can maintain it, and the hours of play that are allowed. And when in a park-poor community, where the playgrounds here are part of the playgrounds for the city and for the community,
having playable fields and that it can be used for the maximum number of hours seems to be, it seems to, you know, in the balance, it seems to go up. But it's something we keep talking about. And I will tell you, 3 years ago, I would have sworn this will be a grass field, definitely, absolutely. But in the conversations, we just feel it's a little shit. Okay, over here and then over here.
I will say I really like the overall campus plan. It's the first thing I noticed was just adding the buildings as a perimeter in the sense. I really like that. My question is, when you get down to the final design, who approves that? Or how does that process go?
Okay, for the design of each of the buildings. So the campus plan.
Great.
Let me do it in two parts. The campus plan, we're planning to talk to the board on April 20th, and they don't approve it at that moment. They bless it. They say, good, go ahead, and then we start working through our CEQA process, California Environmental Quality Act process, which then looks at it and it asks what that impact is. It talks to a lot of neighbors. There'll be many more community meetings, discussions, and then eventually that environmental impact review, EIR, will be approved by the board, and that's when they will officially approve the campus plan. As far as the buildings, we would then start designing them. There's lots of give and take, lots of discussions. We have to come to a consensus, and the board eventually approves the building, because eventually they say, we're going to give you money to build it. You know, they approve the contract for building it. But along the way, there is a lot of give and take, and our board insists on consensus. And one of the first things they ask us is, have the teachers been involved? Has the community been involved? We feel like we've come to a balance place? You know.
Who comprises the board?
We have 7 Board of Education members, which you voted on. Alicia Vignana is here. She's one of our board members. She's our newest board member. Jen Smith, who was sitting up here, she left just a few minutes ago. She's another one of our board members. A lot of our board members just happen to have had children go through Roosevelt. So we have a group of 7. Come to our meetings, they're loads of fun. Not really. They're loads of fun. We have another one next Wednesday night, and we're probably going for about 5-6 hours. You can hear all about Santa Monica Phase 4, because that's what will be coming up. But at the April 20th meeting, we'll be talking about the Roosevelt plan, the Lincoln plan, and we'll also be talking about how we move forward with budgeting, going ahead and getting designs going on these projects.
If the bond passes in November, do you start construction in summer of 2024?
We're going to go out for the bond either in March of 24 or in November of 24. We have to do it on an even year at a major election. And so if we go out in March, which we're talking about, it means we would start some construction summer of 24. I think this won't be through the Division of State Architects and have full approval until summer of 25. Just because I think it'll take us that time to get it ready. You can imagine it takes us a good year to design, and it takes anywhere from 4 to 8 months to go through the Division of State Architects. If you build a house, we're actually here in Santa Monica, I think we're even a little faster with DSA, but just as rigorous. It takes a while, but I think it would be summer of, so either whether we go in March or November of 24, I think we're talking about a summer of 25 construction.
And you said about 5 years for each.
Yeah, so if we did that, we'd probably finish the building in about 2 years, and then hopefully 2 years, summer 25, be ready to open summer 27. I know with kids who are already going, yeah, my kid will be gone. But then summer 27, hopefully be able to do the parking lot on that part, and then the next phase we might be able to start in 30. Yes, ma'am.
I think.
Oh, he's first then.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a parent and a non-practicing architect, so I appreciate all the planning and the thought that goes into this. Overall, the kids do actually spend most of their day with the teachers in the classrooms. I think it would be really helpful to push forward on some thinking and designing of what that looks like. And I would really want to make sure that whoever's involved is actually shadowing the teachers, watching a day in the life of the teacher, seeing where the light comes in at different times of the day, how hot the room gets or not, when they're opening and closing the doors, how the kids are moving around. The majority of the day they're in the classrooms. The plan is beautiful, by the way, I agree. but I think it's really important that the way that you actually get to design the space itself that the kids are acting in is critical. And so the question there is, will the same firm be involved in designing the inside spaces as the master plan, or is that another conversation that different firms get involved in that?
At this time, the same firms, we're planning on the same firms doing the first phase. I can't commit to the rest of the phases.
Sure.
But at least the first phase. You think that's true, and thank you for that.
I just want to, so I just wanted to clarify, so that first phase, the same design company, so teachers can meet with them to make sure that they have all the details shared with that same design company.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's my point, is don't make the teachers meet with them.
Right,
Make
you know
them
what,
meet with the teachers.
right.
let me phrase this in the exact way. Okay, the exact way is we believe at this time we will recommend to the board that they approve the architects who did the master plan to do the first phase.
Okay, great.
If the board approves that, they will be the ones to do it.
Okay.
I don't really make those,
Right.
board makes those decisions.
Yes, thank you.
Just a comment, thank you, this is so exciting, is our front green space on Lincoln, like our gathering space right here, is one of the things that really, I think, makes our school stand out. It's the informal gathering place after school, before school, it's wonderful. So to the extent, while we have a much wider walkway, that does eat into our green space, and I would just say be mindful that we really love that green space as a place for our families and children to gather even during off-school hours. So it's a really wonderful thing.
More, I mean, where the auditorium is, where we even
No, I'm just like,
Yeah.
this right here, and so it's beautiful, that wonderful walkway that angles in, but like everybody kind of loves this.
Yeah, and what you're not seeing is on the left where.
Oh, I'm not seeing
right,
it,
I mean,
okay.
There's a lot more grass.
Okay. Yes.
As we're focusing on the entrance, but believe me, that's one of the things we want to celebrate.
Because it's so
that we like.
wonderful, yes. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
You okay with the soccer pickup?
No, sorry?
Sorry.
No, I like the plan too. Thank you for putting all this work in. It looks great. One thing that is noticeable to me recently is that the number of parents there are kids who walk to school and there are kids who drive to school, but the number of parents bringing their kids to school on bicycles and these European style like cargo bicycles has kind of tripled every year. It was a few, 10 or 15 2 years ago. Now it's like 30 or 40 families are coming in that way. And it only looks like it's increasing, and the city's putting a lot of work into building bike architecture in other parts of the city, which hasn't quite reached Roosevelt yet. There's a protected bike, or there's a green bike lane on Montana, but not much sort of access onto the campus that's protected. And the city should be working on that on their end, but I think the plan here should also include some bike-in access as well as parking access so that people can swing in through their bikes and drop their kids off and keep going safely without having to navigate through traffic, which is what's happening right now. There are left turns off of Montana, all sorts of hairy sort of bike car situations, which are understandable, but if we're making new plans, it would be a thing to think about.
It's something we've definitely discussed, and
Yeah.
also just, the city does have a safe routes to school plan.
Yeah.
That's going to be built summer of '24 that will improve a lot of the connections in areas around here.
Cool.
And takes a real look at both pedestrians and bicycles.
Great.
And so that's big, the city's moving forward with that. So yeah, we'll definitely take that into.
Cool. Thank you. I have to go for that
discussion.
Great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Stephanie Matheson. I teach first and second grade here. I've been here since 1997, so about 26 years. And I'm a total Santa Monica local, passing through Franklin and Lincoln, and now being at Roosevelt for a really long time. I love the plans. I appreciate so much the changes and the feel of the school. It's so vibrant and bright. My question is with respect to the historic buildings that will remain on site. I currently occupy a classroom that is going to look like it's going to be demolished, but it was one of the historic buildings. It's the one on the 9th Street side. And when I started here, it got up to 95 degrees in the classroom. So now we have air conditioning. We also have translucent shades. And we also have shades that are covering patios to help mitigate some of the heat. the light continues to be an issue. And my concern is when we see the plan, those are the only structures that don't have shade facing south in the morning. And how can we looking forward, look at those two buildings that are over there, the existing kinder and then the first and second grade row, and make sure that there is shade, because if those canopies are removed, the light will be really different.
Right, and part of our design exercise is that we do shade and shadow of all the buildings. What kind of light is coming in and what kind of light is on the space in the real orientation. And that's something that just tells us where to put shade and where to have openings and where to have glass. And that would be part of the design process, showing you this is what it looks like in the summer, this is what it looks like in the autumn, this is what it looks like in the spring. And you'll be able to see, we have the software now that can do this, we use it on all of our projects.
So is it permitted to put permanent shade on historic buildings, or does it?
Well, I think there's different ways of placing shade, and we need to work with the Conservancy on where to put that. But it doesn't have to be on the buildings direct. We want to cool it before it gets to the building.
I'm excited to see those ideas.
I'm excited to work with you on those ideas.
Yeah.
Any other questions, sir?
So it looks like a lot of the redesign and penetration of buildings outward and penetrating that security of the outer perimeter. With the school being open, with the school can be rather feel to be able to have school use and for public use, with the partnership. What type of protections are in place to guard the rest of the school from that vandalism that we have in the district at this school and other schools in the district? Or is that all just kind of open plan, and once they get in, they can kind of roam around the entire campus?
It will definitely take us a little while to get here, and I'm trying to get the campus plan again. I'm going in the wrong direction.
Yes, we are thinking about that. There will definitely, but that's also how we want to organize it, so that the north side of the campus does have that access for playground, but then we can really clearly, easily block off how people don't enter into the classroom area. And then as we've increased the use with cameras and other ways of finding it, we're able to minimize some of the vandalism and kids being kids, doing things they shouldn't do. We're working towards that, but that is something that we're very conscious of.
So right now, as it stands, when you have the outer perimeter and just the front gate or the gate, once those gates are closed, if you're inside the campus, you can
You can, once we're inside the perimeter, you can freely move around, but then once we hit the weekends, we want to be able to shut off areas so that it really makes it difficult to go into those areas. You know, we don't have roofs that are easy to climb on, and all the other fun things that we have, and cleaning lemon trees. So, yes?
I have a question.